Civility is also in your packets. One final note, this is a quote here. So, the recording of this event is owned by the League of Women Voters of Idaho and may not be used for any purposes without the explicit written permission of the League. No part of a League-sponsored video production may be used in advertising or in any way to promote a candidate. The League will only allow audio-visual of this event to be broadcast in its entirety. All uses must be attributed to the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce, League of Women Voters of Idaho Candidate Forum on September 23rd, 2025, and must include a disclaimer that views expressed do not reflect those of the League of Women Voters. Okay, I just had to say that. It's on my list to say. Now, I am pleased to turn over the evening to our moderator, Travis Palmer, and his introduction and opening remarks. Travis.
Thanks, Becky. So we've done a few of these candidate forum events since I came on as the executive director of the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce a couple of years ago. We've changed it up a little bit each time, and I think we're getting better each time we do it, and we've got a few more changes to announce tonight. But first of all, I just want to say thank you all for being here. It is fantastic to see a full house. Sorry to the folks in the back that we ran out of chairs, but that's a really good problem to have. Oh, there are chairs up front, by the way. There are a few empty ones, so if you've got an empty chair next to you, raise your hand so the folks in the back can join you. Okay, there's a few there, so I think we can all get you seats. We've already run out of candidate info packets because we didn't know if we were going to have 20 people or 100 people, and we're closer to the 100 side. So we will put the digital version of the candidate information packets on our Facebook page. So if you check out the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, we'll be publishing that here as soon as we can get it out, and that way everybody has access to it. That's a new thing this year. At these forums, we always end up using the first few questions for the typical, why are you running for office? What are your qualifications? What do you want to fix? All the candidates always come prepared for those, and so we thought, let's get those into a packet, give them to everybody, so because it's all important information, right? But we really want to get into the meaty questions as fast as possible. So for those of you that have the candidate info packets, those are good for not only tonight, but the event on Thursday where all the council candidates will be featured as well, and we'll have more printed for Thursday as well, okay? Share with your neighbors if you would, and practice civil discourse and share those, and then we'll get to the meaty questions faster that way. Candidates met with us right before we walked in. They drew straws for position to see who gets to answer the first question. Brad Doty drew the short straw, so he will be answering the first question of the night. After that, we go round robin. We make a lot of effort to try to put as much fairness and neutrality and make sure nothing possibly is biased. That's why we took down the placards of even the folks that already have a seat on the council, and we put equal ones there. We're doing everything as fair and unbiased and impartially as we possibly can. So everybody gets their chance to be the first or the last to answer questions. Speaking of questions, several questions we have come up with on our own through our moderator and the partners that we partnered with at the College of Idaho, the League of Women Voters, MWAG, and others. And then we've had several questions come to us via email or other ways this week. The only questions that the candidates have seen ahead of time are those ones that we gave them, which are in the packets. All the questions that we have already compiled and that you all are going to hopefully give us tonight will be collected. We have a couple of question collectors. We've got some folks from MWAG and some folks from the College of Idaho. Thank you all very much. And they're going to help just hold your card up so you don't have to get up and move around too much. Just hold your card up or pass it to the ends of the aisles and they can hold it up, and we'll make sure we get those. We run all questions through a series of filters, okay? First, any question that is attacking in nature or inappropriate, we automatically pull those. Sorry, this is not a night for drama and fireworks. It's just, that's not the kind of forum we're putting together. So anything of that nature, those automatically get pulled. Second, any question that we present to the candidates will be presented equally to all candidates, and they will all have the exact same amount of time to answer the same question. So if a question is targeted only at one candidate, it may be a wonderful question, but we will not be doing those tonight, okay? Third, we will be consolidating and categorizing similar questions in nature. So if 27 people ask the same type of question, we're going to consolidate those to the best version of that question possible. We're going to hand it to McKay, and then he will ask that one. And that's to just try to be as efficient and get through as many topics as we possibly can. Clear as mud so far? I see heads nodding. Okay, perfect. And let's see. That's what I lost my train of thought. Please do submit your questions, though. That was the other thing. There's never enough time to ask all the good questions that you receive, and I apologize for that, but we'll be here until Christmas if we do. So what we do with the questions that don't get asked, that pass through those first couple filters, we will put those on our social media pages, and we'll write them out, and then we encourage the candidates to go to that post and present their answers in writing after the fact. It's up to them if they want to do it. Often they do, but it's not a guarantee. But we promise you we will take those questions, again, run them through the same filters and consolidators, and then we'll put those out there so the questions will get asked to the candidates. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for being here. My next order of business is actually to introduce our moderator. I've moderated these in the past, and I thought we need to up our game. And we love our partnership with the College of Idaho, and they happen to have somebody that I've seen moderate some other events, and he does a wonderful job, and that is McKay Cunningham. McKay is the professor and director of the Master of Applied Public Policy program at the College of Idaho. That's a mouthful. It's a new program, and I highly encourage you to talk to him about that new program when we're done or some other time. But he's also a tenured law professor specializing in property, constitutional law, and like I said, he's a very experienced moderator, and I think he's going to bring a whole new level to these events. So please, without further ado, welcome McKay Cunningham.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I think a lot of the ground rules and housekeeping have been taken care of. I will say that as a lawyer and as a constitutional law professor, the things that we are doing right here today in this room is an exemplar of foundational representational democracy. This is the hard work, right? It's not a spectator sport. So we are deeply thankful for you being here. We're deeply thankful for our candidates for being here and being willing to be put on the spot and answer these questions. To be sure, this is not a debate. We're not here to get into a tete-a-tete about various issues. This is a panel in which questions are going to be coming to you guys from your constituents. And I'm just the go-between, just asking those questions on their behalf. I think a lot of the groundworks have been squared away. I will say that for the first question, in which Brad drew the short straw, he may consider it the long straw and be able to go first. The first question will be for 3 minutes. And almost all of the other questions that we will ask all three of the candidates will be for 2 minutes. And so that first question, Brad, is a fairly obvious one. Please tell us to introduce yourself a little bit and then identify why it is exactly that you are running for this office.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for being here, everyone. So certainly, I think anytime you run for this type of position, it needs to have meaning and purpose behind it. I've spent my entire life in public service in some way since I was 17 years old, serving in the military, then I was a deputy sheriff, then into the Idaho State Police. I went through the ranks there from trooper, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and major. During that time there, I learned a lot about several things, leadership being one, how to operate multi-million-dollar budgets. But I think most importantly is it's no different than any other profession, whether you're a school teacher, a plumber, a city councilman, a state trooper. you have to find that meaning and purpose. And there are people that go to work without that, I understand that, but for me, that's what it is, making decisions for the greater good of everyone rather than self. And I also believe that it runs deeper than just the standard answer, which is, I think it's in our DNA. I think there's something about us that each pick what we're going to do and what interests us to be successful. And that certainly played an important part in my life. We all hear you could go somewhere else and make more money, but I've never left public service since I was 17. So with that, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go in clockwise fashion. Gerald.
Very good, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone that came out and took time out of your evening to come and be here and to listen to the answers that we are going to give. Appreciate you being invested in your community. That's a big part of why I want to continue being mayor of the city of Caldwell. Continuing, the great things that we have started and that we've been doing for the last 4 years and well beyond that as well. Caldwell is an incredible community. It is the place to be in the Treasure Valley, and I would say throughout the entire Northwest. And it's been a privilege to be a part of that, and I hope to continue to be a part of that, and just attracting the great things here in Caldwell. A big part of why I want to continue being mayor is continuing to serve the community that I grew up in. I moved to Caldwell when I was 14, graduated from Caldwell High School, and it's been one of the greatest honors in my life to be able to serve my community and to give back to what I know is my home for the majority of my life. So I appreciate the opportunity for you to be here, again, to hear from us, and to hopefully continue to serve the people of Caldwell for 4 years to come.
Thank you,
Eric
Eric.
Caldwell. My name is Eric Phillips. I'm another one of the candidates for mayor. Part of why I'm running is to restore trust in how Caldwell is governed. My mission is to work with citizens and professionals to rebuild transparency, ensure smart growth, is balanced with the preservation of Caldwell's identity, and to create a city government that serves every resident with integrity, accountability, and a clear shared vision of our future. With over 20 years in the U.S. Navy, 15 years serving the community in the Caldwell Police Department, and 2 years as the local Caldwell School District's safety director, I built my leadership and crisis management skills to be ready to serve as your mayor. I've spent thousands of hours over the last 4.5, 5 years studying these meetings, from urban renewal, planning and zoning, and city council, and many others, preparing to lead Caldwell with transparency, accountability, and real-world experience. As mayor, I want to work with professionals to restore the trust in the process city leaders are using to govern Caldwell, setting a clear vision to unite people around shared goals. Everything from modernizing infrastructure, the roads, the sidewalks, reevaluating our budget and where the money is going, and of course to support city employees while ensuring transparent, accountable, and integrity-driven growth. Caldwell does face rapid growth that is straining roads, water systems, sidewalks, and there's a lack of transparency, accountability, and we have several $100,000 in lawsuits that have been paid out. With a plethora of issues that we've seen take place, I want to make sure that we are restoring that trust. Some and many in the community have spoken out, even with a recent recall that has been lost. Caldwell just isn't where I live. I grew up here. I'm a 4th generation Idahoan, a Vale View graduate. I also attended Caldwell School District before that. I graduated from College of Western Idaho in Boise State. And my commitment to you is to keep a Caldwell that is safe, secure, transparent, while preserving our agricultural heritage so families thrive for generations. This November, ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And thank you.
Thank you. We've got several questions right off the bat. Let's jump into the middle of it with regard to some discord, some controversy with regard to development, which a couple of you just mentioned with regard to parking meters and how to deal with growth in Idaho. The question really is, how would you build consensus as the mayor? How to bring city council and your constituents together? At this time, we'll start with you, Jerome.
Yeah, and that is a very important part to that is, how do you build that consensus? It's been We've grown considerably the last 4 years here in Caldwell. We've seen incredible success, and we've had some challenges as well. As you know, everyone in the community is aware of some of those things that you mentioned. And those provide opportunities to learn. You know, we always want to learn and see how can we do better in the future. And a big part of that is involving the community. We've always strived to involve the community in any decisions that are made here at the city, from open houses and community outreach and things of that nature. One thing that we could definitely do better, and we plan on doing that, is involving the citizens perhaps in a different manner. Rather than the city leading those open houses and those community outreaches, is having an outside firm or private firm that would create, you know, a citizen task force and would create these committees and run those meetings rather than having city staff do it, so that there's that transparency. They know that there's not an agenda being pushed by the city in regards to what's being presented, and to try to get, you know, the valid, true answers out there of the public. As we've gone through those public outreaches, through those open houses to make decisions in regards to what you had mentioned, you know, the consensus was typically very positive. Once they were put in place, obviously there was some pushback on several of those, and then the council made a decision to revert course on those. And again, we moved forward with what we had as the best information at the time. There's always opportunities to do better, to be better, and I believe involving more of a citizen-led task force, citizen-led open houses would be the way to go to ensure that we're getting the true voice of the people before those are instituted.
Fantastic. Thank you. Eric, 2 minutes.
Not only would I agree with a lot of what the mayor said, but really it's taking the time, right, to come to these conclusions. Just like the parking meters, they were rushed. They were rushed. That's what the consensus was in the public. I think we really need to look at maximizing the parking downtown. Another issue is that we keep hearing of a $20 to $40 million parking garage. Well, part of that holistic picture, right, is we need to know, what does that even mean? What is a $20 million parking garage? What is a $40 million? And we're going to break it down further by per $100,000 value on property. What does that look like in taxes? So at least the people know, is that a legitimate thing that we could do and be affordable, or is it going to break the bank and nobody wants to be a part of it, right? So we hear these things, and I can appreciate that, but at the same time, once again, it's a rush. We got to stop rushing the parking process. And there's a lot of great businesses down, but it feels like sardine cans the more we squeeze in down here. And that's where I've been taking a look at between GPS, the county assessors, and multiple other avenues, and trying to analyze what can we do to maximize the parking downtown. Parking meters were not very popular, and it's already come up again in a meeting, even if it's just as a note. But once again, we really need to slow things down and take a look at the maximum parking space we have down there before we jump into other things like parking meters. We could have completely avoided that entire controversy if we had just taken more time, I think, to really assess what the best needs for Caldwell is.
Thank you. Brad.
All right, thank you. For me, it's teamwork. You need to have teamwork, and whether that's with your city council or with all of you sitting out there, teamwork is the key, right? Setting the agenda for a common goal, goals that are smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely are the key to any successful operation. I think that in regards to the parking meters, yes, there were some issues with that. We have to remember at the time, there was talk of a parking garage as well, and the idea to spread that expense onto other people rather than the Caldwell taxpayer. I don't think anyone disagrees, $20 to $40 million. So the idea was good to begin with. Certainly there was a rollout problem and other issues that came with the parking meters. In response to the growth, we certainly need the growth. That makes a vibrant community. Small business and businesses in general offset the difference between the taxes that all of us don't pay, whether that's new growth or old growth. So we have several teams and committees, whether that's our impact fee committee that helps recommend that, again, using the community involvement, right? I think you've heard everyone say that up here, is to get our community more involved and use our committees to do that. I think that having a transparent schedule so that everyone knows what's going on, so wherever the mayor may or may not be, that other counselors are involved. You know, when setting the agenda, it's important to know what your council's thinking. You should use them to set that agenda, and you should include them anytime you possibly can. And I think moving forward, that translates into our constituents as well. The more involvement, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start this time, Eric, with you. This question, several questions deal with communication in particular between the mayor and city council persons and the transparency therein. Can you speak to your approach, were you to be elected as mayor, with regard to communication, not only with the city council members, but also with the public?
As far as communication between the mayor and the council, it's very important to remember that the council is elected from the people. They are representatives, they're the eyes and ears. So it's extremely important for the mayor to make sure that he keeps the council in the loop. There was an example where a councilor found out from I believe a developer or a builder about a water pressure issue, right? They had been known about for at least 1 to 2 months. That's a major issue with the city and could be catastrophic potentially. So that right there is an example of, not communicating something that is going to severely affect the citizens. Everything from a follow-up, like a post-meeting agenda, right? Not agenda, but just after a city council meeting, right? Have a synopsis of what happened, what was decided, right? Post out in the public, make sure the council's aware of actions that were taken so they can, when they're talked to by their constituents, right, they're able to go back and look at that line by line. Additionally, it seems like there's a lot of complaints of gotchas, right? There's surprises that the council gets very frustrated at, that the mayor kind of springs on them, and I don't think that's appropriate. I do understand there's legalities on what can be discussed in public, but at the same time, it's very responsible and good for the mayor to be keeping the council apprised of what's going on in the city, right? So they don't have to face the heat from the public not knowing and finding out the hard way. So I would say it's important for communication and to be a team with the council. It's very important to be a team and utilize each other and your skills and talents.
Thank you. Brad?
Yes, thank you. I kind of mentioned some of this in my last statement, and Eric touched on a few of it, honestly, but there's always opportunity for better communication, always. And I do agree that we're all elected by the people. We're all trying to do what's best. And if we do not share that communication amongst each other, then you have 7 people trying to lead the ship and no one's rowing the ship. So I certainly believe that having an open agenda, using your council members, again, help relay that information to our public is paramount. There is no reason, in my opinion, that councilors can't join other meetings that are happening in our city, as long as we're not in violation of any open meeting laws. We have sometimes that at meetings that our citizens often know more than what your councilors know when they come to council. And so I think that having involvement with your council as much as you can and passing that on to the citizens that also want to attend, there's always opportunity for better communication. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. Appreciate that. And yeah, communication is very, very important between the mayor and the council, as well as the mayor and the community, as was mentioned. Ensuring that they all are aware of kind of what's going on. It can be more difficult. It looks like a very easy thing to do from the outside. It's easy to also say that there's gotcha moments, things of that nature, without any specifics. There's many times, the water pressure was mentioned. That unfortunately got blown well out of proportion. That was being handled by staff, and so sometimes you just don't know the full picture, and it can be difficult to express that out to the entire council. I have reached out, sent many emails in the past, encouraging council to set up meetings with myself through my assistant. And some councilors have taken advantage of that, and many have not. And so there's those opportunities. It is a two-way street. So while it may seem to be easy to blame the person at the top, you've got to realize that it does flow both ways with communication in that regard. So we've tried to set up, that line of communication to be open, to have those opportunities. I know recently an email was sent out with some changes that we've made in regards to our structure with the caveat. If you have questions, please reach out. Let's meet anytime. I know that some counselors have had many questions, but none have reached out to me to talk with me. If they did have questions, they've gone through other channels in that regard. So it's just always important to know that that is a two-way street and to reach out with any questions. I've always had that open door policy and ability to meet with those individuals in that regards.
Thank you. Let's stick with growth. I think we can all agree that over the past 3, 4, 5 years, Caldwell has seen some unprecedented growth. And let's talk about what the candidates think about development plans, what we've seen already to accommodate that growth, and what we are doing right, and what should we be doing differently with regard to the growth that we're seeing here in Caldwell. Brad, I believe this one begins with you.
Thank you. Well, I had the opportunity to serve on the committee that produced the new comprehensive plan. When I first came onto council, it was clear that there had been many exceptions or deviations from the comprehensive plan that was in place. During that process, many people from the community were involved with that plan. It has received recognition from people outside of the city of Caldwell, unbiased recognition that it's a good plan. So in regards to growth, it is the #1 issue that you hear come up. We're at a 6% rate, at far above anyone else surrounding us. With that comprehensive plan, I certainly think that we need to follow it to the best of our ability, especially when it comes to commercial. So commercial development makes up all the taxes that we all are short on based on our expectations and our demands of the city. So again, it's not just new growth, it's old growth. Most of us expect and demand about $2,000 more in services than we pay in taxes. So certainly we need to look at that. I agree with the impact fee committee. This council has raised the impact fees based on the impact fee committee's advice, which are people that are in the community just as you are. One thing to remember about impact fees, for every $1,000 you raise impact fees, 922 Idahoans are out of a house. So for every 1,000, 922 cannot afford a home. So in regards to impact fees, we certainly should solicit the community's response from that and continue down that path to assess those whenever possible. Thank you.
Gerald.
Growth is a vital part of your community. If you want to be a thriving community like Caldwell where people want to come to, you need to be growing. And that is in many different aspects, from your residential growth to your commercial to your industrial. All of those things need to be moving in a positive direction. If you stop growth, that doesn't mean people are going to stop coming to your community if they're wanting to. It means that prices of homes will get even more expensive. It'll hurt businesses, especially the small businesses that we have throughout Caldwell. If you don't have new patrons coming, new customers, then you're not going to last very long, unfortunately. And so growth accommodates those things. We've seen some amazing things coming to Caldwell, new Home Depot, which is going to be opening next week, Fred Meyer, which will be breaking ground next month, and many others that are in the wings waiting to be announced. Those do not come to a community if there's not growth, if they're not seeing new rooftops. And so to provide those opportunities for our citizens, we do need to have that growth. And then that also helps with our taxes. Obviously the cities are funded much by property tax. We also get sales tax from the state. Our sales tax numbers are considerably lower from those surrounding us per capita. And so by increasing, the shopping opportunities, the commercial, the retail, that will help us as well to get more sales tax dollars that are allocated to Caldwell, which means that you need less property tax to make your city function. So growth is a much needed and important part of your community. As mayor, we have not focused on quantity, we have focused on quality. And so that is the key, is to continue to have quality growth in Caldwell. And as you've seen with the quality that we've brought, it does mean that more people want to continue to come. And thus we've seen those record-breaking numbers that we've had. But again, I would highlight the quality of the growth that we've experienced in Caldwell the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric.
I would agree. Growth is wonderful, right? Commercial that's come up on 2026 is great. Home Depot and a plethora of other businesses that have come in along there. But at the same time, if you grow too fast, we're going to end up having 2026. How would 2026 look like what it did for the last few months, which is atrocious, right? It looked like a wasteland. That's where growth needs to be balanced with taking care of the community itself holistically, right? From your roads, your streets, your sidewalks, making sure there's enough employees out there like police and fire, not having constant, lack of availability of fire trucks, right? That we constantly hear about. We've had paramedics, which I know is a different agency, but growth is great, but not at the rate where we can't sustain our own services. As a matter of fact, Idaho Code 18-67-6513, the subdivision ordinance, gives us the opportunity to mitigate a lot of those financial impacts, right? Instead of constantly having, like out in Valley View, they passed a bond, they're going to have to pass another bond before we know it to pay for the growth in the schools. We have the ability through the Idaho Land Use Act to mitigate that, right? It's not to stop growth. I agree, commercial is important. We do need it to offset our tax base. But why are we putting the constraint on the citizens that are here now and making it painful to where people, when you're out handing out up to almost 500 campaign signs now, everyone is at wit's end over the complexities that this growth is causing. So we're going to have to find a way to mitigate ourselves through that and to reduce the financial impact to the citizens, right? Once again, it's not to stop growth, but we need to stop spreading it out so far. Infill, we have a lot of things that we can do closer to the downtown city, along the boulevard and other areas, instead of all the way out to Lake and Orchard. We're headed out towards Farmway. When it comes to the comp plan, right? Why are we already issuing or taking special use permits to modify the comp plan? If it's so great, let's stick to it. Let's stick to it to the T and go from there.
Thank you. I want to do just a really quick follow-up, and this is just going to be a 1 minute, if that's okay with you. And we'll start with you, Jerem. And the question is, what are your thoughts about having a city manager and a mayor?
So I think that is a great question. 1 minute is very short for that.
You know what? Let's push it out to 2. Let's push it out to 2 full minutes for each candidate.
So,
at your request.
Yes. So one of the things that I pride myself in is we try to learn from others. As I travel the country for different conferences, attend those, with our amazing economic development director, we go and we talk with city leaders in other parts of the country. What is working for them, what is not, and try to learn from them in that regard. And we've talked to many cities that do have a city manager form of government outside of Idaho, and there are a few cities that do in our community. It is a difficult task, mayor of a city of nearly 80,000 people, where there is no chief of staff, there's no chief operating officer, there's no really assistance in that regards. And so I think a city manager is definitely something that should be looked at. I don't think it's something that should be brushed aside and said, let's not do that. Again, it goes back to one of those first questions about involving the community. What does the community see as the benefits and the drawbacks from that? I believe there's a lot of benefits to it, but again, I think it's important to have like a citizen task force that would look into that, having the community leaders, members to kind of lead that and guide that and see what is the feel in that regard. And even if it meant that it changed, I absolutely love being mayor. There's nothing like being able to lead the community that you love. But again, you have to put the needs and wants of the people you serve first. And if the needs and wants of the citizens are that we need to go to a city manager form of government, that means that the task of the mayor will be lessened, and that's going to mean a deduction of pay, things of that nature. And I'm more than willing to do that as mayor, to take a reduction in my pay, to move to that form of government if that's what the citizens deemed necessary to continue the great work that we're doing here in Caldwell.
Thank you. Eric.
I think at this time there's not really a clamoring for that. I do agree that we're going to need additional personnel involved, right, in the management of the city. I don't think that's lost on anyone. At the same time, we do need to look at that task force to see if there's really yearning, and ultimately it's going to have to go to a vote of the citizens to make that decision. If it does go to that point and they decide that, we would have to respect that. But I think we can have a healthy balance, right, of an assistant to the mayor that holds that same similar title, qualifications, experience, instead of taking away from the power of the people. If we go solely to a city manager position and have a weak mayor, that means the council basically is going to run the city instead of giving the people the opportunity to elect that person who they want is best to lead the city. So unless there's a clamoring for that, or through the workshop and the citizen-led task force comes to that determination that's what people want, of course I would respect it, right? That's why we're here. We want what the citizens want, but I just don't know if we're quite ready to go fully to that.
Thank you. Brad.
This one's tough to go third on because you've heard it all already, but certainly if the citizens want to head in that direction, there's pros and cons for city manager, there's pros and cons for a chief of staff. If the citizens are wanting a city manager or a chief of staff, let's certainly entertain that idea. The issue with the city manager, though, is unless several laws are changed, understand that they answer to the council. So if the city manager isn't doing what we would like them to do, and you don't vote for the mayor because you're mad at the city manager, in most cases, the citizens actually lose control over the direction of the city with the city manager. there are some benefits from it. You certainly will have to pay for those. So you used to be able to be a jack of all trades and be a city manager. Now so many things are so much more technical that if you want someone with that experience, you are, as a community, going to have to pay for that. There is no doubt. To get someone that knows a lot about everything costs a lot of money. Generally, in cities of 80,000, based on my research, they're stepping stones. They're here 2 or 3 years before they head to their next big city. So those are just some things to consider, but we certainly should always listen whether the citizens want a chief of staff, a strong mayor, thank you very much, or any type of other structure that the citizens may want. We already have many directors of many different departments. That's usually why those occur. They have a specialty in that department. Finding a city manager that knows a lot about all those departments can be very difficult. And just again, I'll reiterate that the citizens do lose a little control over a city manager. They do answer to the city council. Thank you.
Thank you for that. This question, a series of questions actually deal with employees, city employees. And I'll try to combine them. How do you plan to support city employees? And a subset of that is, what are your thoughts on long-term city employees being overlooked for opportunities that they are qualified for? I believe we begin with Eric.
Thank you for the question. So city employees are very important to me. I spent 15 and a half years as a city employee, and I understand what it's like to be in that position. One is support, right? We had a 23-year mayor that every time he met with you, call you by your first name, he'd come visit you, made you feel great, right? So that's important to be there for the people. As mayor, the first year, right, I would spend meeting, and of course I'd have to shorten that time frame to get through all the departments and agencies before that, but spend time, get to know them, see what it's like from their vantage point, go out on calls with them, please ride-alongs, you know, if you're able to ride along with the fire department and others, meet with HR or finance, see what it's like to live in their shoes for a day, a week, a month, or a year. Really just listening. Another change recently with employees, right? We're going through the process right now. We made appointed officials permanent employees. I feel like that took away, they are in a sense permanent employees until they were not reappointed, but took away power from the council, right, to be able to have that checks and balances once a year when they do their evaluations. And I think that was a very important loss for checks and balances that the city had. So that's my thought. I love the employees. I love what they do. I just really want to be there for them and support them in the best way that I can.
I just want to clarify, this was about employees that qualified for a job within the city and were overlooked. Was that part of the?
Yeah, the question was, what about city employees who were qualified but who were overlooked?
Yeah, well, certainly we want to compensate our city employees fairly, right? And I think this council has proven that we have given them the largest pay increase of any council in recent history. And we always want to analyze what our other cities are doing to prevent our employees from heading over, let's just say, Nampa, right? So we need to do fair compensation. I wouldn't mind a citizens task force to help with that, especially when it comes to city council, if that's what we're talking about. I don't believe city councils should be giving themselves their own pay raises. I think that citizens committee would do very well at that, to make that determination. But in regard specific to employees, I think we should invest in their training if they feel they're qualified, but they're not achieving whatever position's open, if that's what the question's referring to, then we certainly need to look at our own structure to make sure that we're providing the training and education and experience necessary to qualify. On another side, oftentimes we also don't want to get stagnant. So if we have people here that don't bring in new ideas, and we don't provide the training, or training's limited, or people don't want to go to training and they check the boxes, oftentimes you may find someone outside of our city that's much more qualified. And we just talked about hiring a city manager. So if the citizens want a city manager, or maybe they don't, but let's say if they want a city manager, we certainly should be looking for the best qualified person to lead whatever department that the city is trying to hire for. Also, just to reiterate, we also want to provide that training. If we're not providing training that we are going to require for a position, we certainly should be evaluating that, setting goals and objectives to accomplish that. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair.
Yes. So there's nothing more important to me than supporting our city employees. Being a former city employee myself, I remember what it was like when you didn't feel like you had that support. So that was one of the main objectives when I came in, is to make sure the employees not only hear it, but they see it. And we've done many things here at the city to make sure the employees feel appreciated through the pay raises that have been given and other events, family events that we do. We do an employee family barbecue every year so they can bring their families down and have that environment where they feel wanted, they feel needed, and that their families are as well. So getting to know the employees is so important. Getting to know the departments. It's been my pleasure and privilege to do that. Whether I've been out, riding the lawnmower at the golf course, so I can see what is that like. Going on police ride-alongs. Working with the fire department, and doing all of those things, and going out with the employees, going out with the water department is to go out and check water meters and the road construction projects that are going on. Those are so key and vital for a mayor to do. And that's been one of the greatest things for me, to get to know these employees. We have over 400 employees now at the city of Caldwell, and so that is a lot of people I'm trying to get to know. I love getting to meet with the new employees. I always meet with every new employee here at the city. I met with several today and get to know them more on a personal level, and I think that's so important, and really strive to make sure we're doing that. Providing the needed training for your employees, and too, that shows that you care about them. Giving them the tools that they need to be successful in their jobs. And I always tell our employees, as much as we understand that you need this job, for your paycheck, to pay your bills and things like that, the number one goal is that when you go home that day, that you go home a better person. That we're not only just providing you money to pay your bills, but we're trying to make you better people in your community, and I think that we're doing a great job with that. It was mentioned about the change to the appointed officials. I think that shows that you care about your employees by taking that away and allowing them to not have to worry about, am I gonna have a job next year just because maybe there's a new mayor that doesn't like me. It took power away from the mayor, because the mayor could have just withheld the name because they didn't like that individual. So it provided that opportunity to show that we really do care for the employees, and we're going to make sure they have that longevity. And then also for the long-term employees that are looking for promotions, we always want to hire the best candidate, whether that's inside or outside of the state.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone that we're going to have a break here for those who need to use the restroom here in about 12 minutes. I also want to remind the folks that are with us on streaming that if you have questions, please submit them via the chat, and we will do our best to get those questions to our panelists. The next question, I think, belongs to Brad going forward, and the question is, will you commit to directing CPD to work with ICE to enforce U.S. immigration law?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think we already have policies and procedures in place to support any of our federal agencies that come into the state of Idaho. We certainly should follow the governor's directive in the area of ICE specifically. However, I think that the important thing to remember, I come from a law enforcement background, is that we are looking for people with criminal records that are dangerous to our society. I've been on some of these operations. We are not just driving down the street, picking up anybody that walks along the street. They are planned operations for very dangerous people. So I would say in that aspect, absolutely, that we should be supporting not only ICE, but any federal agency that's looking for people that cause us harm in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald.
Yes, thank you. In regards to that, our Caldwell Police Department does an amazing job. We have some of our officers here today, and we have many out on the streets right now that are helping to protect us and serve our community. So it is vital that they continue to do that, that they provide the services that are required, that they are, again, if there are criminals in that regards, that we need to ensure that we are working to make sure that, if there are illegal immigrants that are here that are criminals, that have a criminal record here in the United States, in Idaho, we need to ensure, as any other citizen that out there that maybe has those same issues, those same criminal records, that they do need to be off the street. But again, it's not treating them any different. It's working together as a police department to provide the security and safety of our community, and not targeting any specific group, but again, just ensuring that we're doing our best and doing our jobs to get the bad guys out of the streets, regardless of who they are or where they came from. And I am super proud of our police department, the great job that they've done, and continuing to work together to provide community policing. They are seen out in the community so much, which is so important. The new Caldwell Mounted Patrol Unit that they have provides just a great opportunity for the community to get to know the police department in a way that they never have before. I've seen so many wonderful things that have happened with that. But again, as far as singling out, specific groups or individuals, unless they are criminals, we should not do that. We need to go after the criminals and not single out other groups just specifically because of those concerns.
Thank you. Eric?
I would agree with Councilor Doty and the mayor. It's very important things that CBD's been doing for our community. A lot of great things. They're very busy, right? I think there's a difference between directing someone to go after people and if they happen upon them in the course of their duties. We never want to see a situation where CBD is just going after people unless they fit that criteria of someone that we know has a warrant, someone that's a wanted and dangerous individual and is a danger to our community. Right? CBD should serve all citizens, no matter the color of their skin, where they came from, how long they've been here, in a very respectful and community caretaking, community-oriented policing manner. Right? That's one thing. In the 15 and a half years I was there, I never saw a time, like myself, where anyone went after someone because of what they look like. So if ICE does come into town, obviously, and they need some assistance for some sort of a high-risk individual or warrant to be served, that would be an opportunity where, yes, they would work with them, but we would never put ourselves in a situation where we're just going out and looking for people in the general context versus in the course of our duties. I would never want to be hearing from our community that was a thing, right? We've seen it across our community, and they get very upset, and the beautiful thing that we have here for CPD is that they do have the community's backing. I mean, look at all the things that have occurred throughout the course of our recent history, and generally, this community supports them very much. We want to maintain that.
Fantastic. I got to tell you guys, we have a lot of questions with regard to housing, a lot of them, and so we'll get into that right now, and then maybe take a break after this question. I'm trying to kind of combine several questions, and I hope that you'll stick with me. Here it is. How do you balance the need for more housing and development with preserving the quality of life, with preserving kind of the Caldwell culture? And the second part is with regard to high-density development. Is that a source of concern or disagreement? Would you support a moratorium on apartment complex development? And I apologize, that's like a three-part question, and I'm more than happy to repeat it again. Jerem, we begin with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would never support a moratorium in that regards. So I think that there does need to be a balance with the housing of that nature. And how do you balance the housing with the Caldwell culture? You need to first know the Caldwell culture. It is an amazing community that we have, the people that live here. And it's the people that live here and the things that we do that creates our culture, not the number of people that live here. And so you can continue with the amazing things that we have in Caldwell. The Indian Creek Festival, the 4th of July festivities at Memorial Park, and the fireworks show are things that make Caldwell. Indian Creek Festival, when I was growing up, that did not exist because Indian Creek was buried underneath the road. And so your community changes, but that becomes part of your identity. I don't think you go anywhere without having Indian Creek Festival, the Winter Wonderland, being part of Caldwell's identity. And that did not exist 30 years ago. So you do change, but you still retain the quality of your community, and it's the people that make up the quality of that community. The reason I would not support a moratorium of any kind in that nature is we need to have multifamily. We need high-density residential in our city. We can't all afford, especially with today's prices, to go out and buy a single-family home. If I had to go out and buy my home today, I could not do that, even with myself working full-time and my wife. We would not be able to afford it. And so we need to have different opportunities, different pricing options for the people that are in the different stages of life. When I was first married, we loved living in the apartment that we were in. I couldn't imagine doing that now with 3 teenage boys. And so it changes a lot depending on where you're at in life. And so I think that is a very important part of your community. If you get rid of the ability to have high density housing, that's kind of what cities are for. We love Caldwell, we love what we have here, but cities have the infrastructure, they have the sewer, the water to provide for that. Otherwise, you are going to have that sprawl. You're going to have people having to go further out because all the land in the city is being taken up by single family homes on larger lots. So you need to have that ability to have those homes in there to make sure you're serving every citizen of your community.
Thank you. Eric.
Having grown up here, it is very important to have a variety of housing prices. I mean, we've gone from affordable housing to attainable. Now I don't even know if that's a word we can use anymore due to the price increases. One thing we've looked at downtown, Caldwell Housing Authority, right? They've taken blighted, dilapidated lots that were taken through county taxes that weren't paid, and they've turned a lot of those around. I think that's where an important focus should be, right? If we have that opportunity to bring more affordable housing, right? And when you look at the transition with those houses in the area, even though they are newer, there's not a drastic transition. Now, if I drive down the boulevard and I look at the apartments that are at Homedale and Boulevard, you know, you're going from R1, basically country residential, and other businesses to a huge apartment complex that just does not fit the area. And I think that's where it's important. If we're going to look at restricting housing or placing housing, that is not the place. We need to focus it more of a downtown area. I mean, over here, we built an apartment complex without enough parking and further constrain the area. Multifamily is important, but when we erase our culture with these giant complexes and tear things out, you know, we do lose that Caldwell culture, and we do have a great culture. That's why I've chosen to make this my home and continue here. As far as supporting the moratorium, right? Interim ordinances moratorium is something I would be using if we look at the amount of houses we currently have approved and are not built yet. Now, what's important to that is understand it's not a permanent moratorium, right? That's temporary, and there's justifications behind that. I believe it's 182 days up to a year you can do that, where we need to tap the brakes a little bit and look at where we're at. If we can't even take care of ourselves and our streets and our weeds, and people have to complain online, and our fire departments, you know, having issues having enough vehicles, pass the fire bond, we don't have the fire station built yet. We need to get that support going, so when we do grow, we have all the pieces to the puzzle to make sure we can be safe, our services aren't sacrificed, and we don't have to be continually asked for more levies and bonds to try and take that. So I absolutely would support one. Understand it's temporary, right, per the law. It can't go anything, we as a council, if they were to approve it, can't go anything past what's prescribed by law. But that doesn't mean it's a permanent stop to that. So other than that, that's what I have for that question.
Thank you. Brad?
Yes, thank you. Blended housing is essential. It's essential to a thriving community. We have all variances of wages amongst all of us here. So yes, I think that we need to continue with apartment complexes, as well as even it'd be nice if we could sell some multi-million-dollar homes. Those are the folks that often have a little bit more money to give to our nonprofit areas of our city. So I totally believe in blended housing, and I think it does fit with our culture. We have lots of industry in the area, lots of farm work in the area. I agree that owning a new home, I'm not so sure I could afford my home now had I not purchased it at the right time. So it becomes a big struggle. And I give this story. When I was in Moscow as a state trooper, living on the income that state troopers live on back then, public service doesn't pay very well. And some forward thinking came, and we made very dense housing. My house was 8 feet from my neighbor's house. I had no lawn, and we had a common area in the middle. And I mean, that was perfect for me starting out. I couldn't afford any more than that. I couldn't afford any larger lawn. So for me, that was perfect. And then of course, you start in that home and then work your way up from there. So I do believe in putting the density in the city, absolutely. That stays off our farmland. If we don't build the houses in the city, and I get that it can be frustrating if you purchased an acre lot or half-acre lot in the city years ago. But if we don't put the density in the city, it will make its way out onto the farmland at some point. Moratoriums are reserved for something that's in peril. Just to place a moratorium on apartment complexes, I'm totally not for. There has to be something in peril in order to put in a moratorium. So thank you.
Thank you. Guys, let's take a 5 or 6 minute break. I know it's ambitious, but we'll be back by 7:06. 7:06. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Thank you all. I want to suggest that all three of our candidates have booths in the back. You probably have seen them. They've got material with regard to their campaign. Please go see those after the event. We also have info packets. I think that was mentioned earlier by Travis with regard to some foundational questions that all three candidates have already filled out. We've got extra copies of those as well. And they're going to be on the Facebook page for the chamber for you to see, as well as the candidates' responses to those foundational questions. Finally, we've got stacks and stacks of questions, which is so encouraging because of this kind of process that we need to continue to do. And to the degree that we do not get to those questions, which we will not get to all of them, those questions will be posted on the chamber's Facebook page. And we are going to encourage our candidates to go onto that Facebook page and answer them separately, because we will not be able to get them tonight. So with that having been said, the next couple of questions, a lot of them with regard to education. Let's see, where am I starting here? Eric, thank you. Eric, we'll start with you. How will you demonstrate your commitment to supporting our local school district and valuing the youth in our community? That's part one. Part two, how will your words about the importance of education translate into concrete actions? Yeah, it's about education generally and how you as mayor, if you are elected, how you will demonstrate your commitment to supporting our local school districts and valuing our youth in the community.
So there's a lot of depth to that question. The city and the school districts have a pretty long-standing partnership, which I think is very important, right? We have two major school districts that operate within the city. If you go back in time, you look at Caldwell School District used to comprise a lot of the Caldwell city limits. It's now expanded to Vale. So both of those districts and the partnerships we form with them are very important. Everything from, the mayor participates in the Mayor Youth Advisory Council. I think that's important to be honing our next leaders for the future, right? To make sure they have access to the government and understand the complexities of it. It also allows more folks to be the eyes and the ears for the local city government out in the community and see what's favorable, what's not, and to participate in a lot of the fundraisers and other events that they have, like the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council Gala. I worked in the education system for 2 years, right? There's such phenomenal folks that work in our school district, school board members, and a whole variety of other people that substitute and volunteer their time. Part of that partnership with the city is the sports program, right? I don't think people realize the scope and scale that the city uses school facilities for those programs. I know there were some issues, right? Some bumps when I was in there, not taking care of the facilities, not cleaning them up, not from the school district side, but just those using it. So I think it'd be important for the city to make sure that you're not rubbing things raw by taking advantage of the school district. Additionally, one thing that I'm just going to be honest, the school resource officer program, which is an integral part of the safety of our children, right? Not just the safety with the staff. I've helped write those contracts, right? I've helped go through them. The contract that's in place right now, I think is atrocious. I think there's a lot of things going on that people aren't aware of when it comes to the amount of money that the school districts are paying and the services they're getting. We absolutely love Caldwell Police Department, right? We want them in the schools. But if we're going to take concrete action, right, to show that we truly care about kids' safety, the prices the districts are paying, they need to get more bang for their buck, right? Or we need to look at lowering those prices if we're going to be gone, have officers out of the school, and not ruin that relationship, potentially with the school district, because if they're gone all the time, what do they even spend their money on? What are they paying for? And I just think we really need to hone that in so we don't sour that relationship between the school district and the city.
Thank you. Brad?
Schools are such an integral part of our city, especially the high schools and the rivalries that go on. We just had a great football game, I guess, depending on what side you were on. I think certainly that type of community involvement, and I think Caldwell has stepped up, and I think that's great, and we should do that in many more sports, because sports are a great asset to our community, and it shows that our kids are more successful when they are in school. I totally support the Youth Advisory Council. In fact, what I would suggest that we do to get the schools more involved is have some of these meetings there, right? For the government classes, going to the high schools, getting the kids involved. They often come to council, often maybe a strong word. They sometimes come to council and sit in our crowd, but they're not really involved with the process that's going on. So maybe get involved more with the government classes and how it works, and then having the meetings there. We would certainly rotate the meetings around the city. Our residents would have to pay attention to, as well as the counselors, as to where the meeting might be that day, but I think getting them involved and going to them first. In regards to school resource officers, absolutely support that. I think having police in our schools is paramount to the success and safety of our schools. Oftentimes, if we're talking about student relationships though, we all know they can handle the critical incidents and things that occur in the schools and the crime that occurs in the schools. But there are many, many stories out there about school resource officers certainly assisting those troubled youth, getting them put on the right career path, maybe someone that they can talk to, a mentor to them as well. So I think absolutely, not only our police department should be involved in our schools, but all of our services that we provide in some way, shape, or form. And that can extend to the other classes as well, depending on if it's finance or fire or anything of that nature. I think going to them would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes. So I think the relationship that the city has with the school districts is so important. Having that open communication so that the city understands what their needs are. They are two very different bodies. They are elected officials of their own, as are the city council and the mayor here at the city. But we need to work together. They need to know where's the growth occurring. We need to know where they plan on having schools in the future so we can work seamlessly together in that regard. Supporting our students is paramount. Being able to provide them with positive role models and hope and aspirations for their future of what they want to do and achieve in their life is so important for the students. And that's been one of the greatest things that I've been able to do. And the greatest reward for me has been able to hang out with these students. It is amazing if you have the chance to get to be with some of these kids. It's like, it'll blow your mind away, the things that they're achieving. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Council was mentioned. That was started by our former mayor, Mayor Garrett Nicolas, back in the late 90s, the very first Mayor's Youth Council in the state of Idaho. I'm proud to say that we are now at over 100 students that are involved in that. And it's amazing to have those programs and to have those meetings with them. And like we have some right now that are on a full ride at Columbia. We have another one that just went to a full ride at Stanford that did an internship at NASA and was invited back for a second one. And so these are the kids that are coming up, and I absolutely love getting to be with them. We do, pizza with the mayor, where we go to elementary schools, and the principal picks out kids that did something extra special or showed good community service, and then we get to have pizza with them and inspire them to continue doing those great things. I remember a quick story, and I'll try to do it in under a minute. I had the opportunity to go and read to kids at elementary schools. There was an opportunity I went, and they had a book for me to read. And this book was titled, it's something to the effect of the super duper special invited guest. And as I was reading through that, I did cheat and I looked at the back to see what that was going to be. And I saw there was a mirror there. So I talked about who was this special guest coming. And the mirror obviously was you at the end. And I made sure that when I got to that last page, I flipped it. And so the kids saw themselves and not me. Because that's who it's all about. Be able to make sure those kids know you are the super special invited people here. We're going to continue to support you and make sure you have the needs that you have to be able to be successful in life.
Thank you. Eric? I apologize. The next question, several of them actually deal with misinformation, with the use of social media, with how is it that we as a public entity can communicate better with our constituents. How is it that we can ensure that community members are actually being interacted with in the face of misinformation? And I think that's the gist of the question, and I apologize for not having it be more specific. Brad, we'll start with you, and if you need me to try to massage that a little more, I'm happy to do so. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think using our public information officer is a great resource. So oftentimes I will call when I see something popping up on social media a lot about a certain intersection or a specific project that we're working on. In today's technology, I don't know if she's here, and I certainly won't put her on the spot, but anytime the city of Caldwell is mentioned, it will show them that people are talking about the city of Caldwell. And certainly you can put different filters on that and try and weed out the misinformation. And I think that's what's important, is that we don't address the gossip, we don't address the things that are opinion or not fact or misleading to our public, but I think we focus on the facts. If enough people are talking about a specific situation, a specific intersection, a specific project, that we can pick up on that and certainly put out press releases in regards to social media. Now, social media isn't the only way, right? However, if that's what we're talking about specifically today, we can increase our social media presence, and I would like to see that more with each department. Having one PIO serving all the departments of the city can be very, very difficult. We all know that emergency services take up a lot of that, of the press releases that are put out there, but so many of our departments are doing many, many wonderful things. Parks and Rec has found someone that looks like they are excelling at that extra duty, and we certainly could use that more throughout the city. So I think it's important, though, to remain factual on the topic. Don't address the misleading information or the gossip. However, if it's about a specific project or a specific intersection, that we absolutely can do a better job getting that information out to our public. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Good. And yes, there's a plethora of misinformation and falsehoods on social media, unfortunately. And I think that we have a responsibility to make sure that if we are part of that, we need to correct that information. You know, as a city, we obviously do have a Facebook and Instagram account and other social media, that if there are just erroneous information out there, we state the facts. I ensure that our staff knows we are not going to engage in any negativity, and we're going to rise above that, and we're going to simply state the facts. And also requesting people to come and talk. If they have questions, if they hear something on social media that they're not sure about, to reach out, you know, to the mayor's office or to the public works department or to the street department or whatever department that may be, and find out the facts. It takes some legwork on your side of it to do that, but it's so important. And I know there's been many times when my staff has reached out to talk to individuals to kind of bring them in. Some refuse to do so, and some others come in. And typically when they come in, we can talk to them, let them know the actual factual information, answer their questions, and then they usually leave very happy. Not always, but usually. And again, it's just having that open dialogue, communication, the ability to reach out. Don't just believe it because 20, 30 people said it on Facebook or whatever it is, but research that, find the facts, be willing to talk. I think that is so important that we must be willing to talk to those, even those that disagree with us vehemently. We need to be willing to discuss those issues with them and try to find some common ground and then get to the facts and stick to the facts.
Thank you. Aaron?
I would say that when it comes to misinformation, right, obviously people have the ability to say what they want on social media, and it is the city's job to correct that information, right? And to really do that, you need to stay ahead of it, right? I think time and time again, if you're not out looking at what's going on the ground in the city, as a leader, this stuff's going to get out there, right? We would have a lot less issues if our leadership was taking care of the city in a better fashion, right? If you drive around the city, some of the things that have come up recently, and I do thank the city for taking some corrective action for some of the measures that things that have taken place out in the city, right? The weeds in 2026 and other issues. But I think you really got to get on the ball about staying ahead of these topics. And I think weekly videos, right? Updates to the city, monthly videos. ITD does a great job. I would also say that our fire department and others and Parks and Rec have stepped up their social media game. The city posts stuff, but it's nice to share events, but you really need to get the city informed as to what's going on, projects, future things, meetings, and that's what people get frustrated with, is they have to wait till after this explosion of information, whether it be truthful or not, gets out there. So I think if you really get out and get the pulse of the city, we would avoid a lot of these issues, and that's going to take leadership that understands what's going on out in the city, whether you like social media or not, and misinformation.
Thank you. This is a question that my colleague did not want me to ask, so I'm going to ask it. It comes from an online question. And here it is. Which current Idaho legislator, 1 minute for this one please, which current Idaho legislator best represents your worldview and ideology, and why? Jerem, we begin with you.
I might need a minute to just think about that. So I served in the state legislature, and so I know many of the individuals down there, and created many good friends, lasting relationships. That's why it's so difficult, because so many people come to mind, and trying to pick one is extremely difficult. But if I have to pick one, I'm going to go with our own senator from here in Caldwell, Camille Blaylock. She was recently elected. I think Camille does a great job, Senator Blaylock, and listening to both sides. We have, unfortunately, there's many legislators that don't do that, that only listen to their interest groups or the people that support them. And in serving in that capacity, it is so important to know that you need to listen to both sides. You represent everybody in your community. You don't just represent the people that elected you, you represent everybody. And so it's important to listen to everyone. And so for that reason, I would pick Senator Blaylock for that.
Thank you. Eric.
I think that's a challenge, right? Two of my legislators I look up to right now is local Kent Marmon and Lucas Kaler, right? Both of them, when you talk about listening to people, had a listening session where they went around, right, their district and had over several, I think it was weeks, months, they posted it, they made people aware, we shared it, and they came out and talked to people. So it's great to be at City Hall if you're looking at leadership from how I want to look at this city and how we do things, but you need to get out there and get out to the people. Get out to the HOA meetings. We have a Connor Fieldhouse and other facilities that we should be able to use instead of just always meeting here, and that's one thing I look up to them. They've both taken the time to hear the people and listen to their concerns.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I've spent many days down at the legislature as well, clearly before I retired, but I'd say Representative Scott, under the same direction that he always seemed to be willing to help, always seemed to help guide me as a young, I guess, inexperienced individual testifying in front of the legislature. I've called him on a few issues. They certainly are willing to listen, but so I would guess my experience with him is that he's willing to listen and point you in the right direction and set you on a path that I think helps you at least understand the process well. Not everything goes our way. I think we all know that, but I would just say Representative Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go from that exciting question to taxes. A couple of questions in that regard have been submitted by the constituents. How does growth affect the city's tax base and specifically homeowners' property taxes? And I believe we begin, Eric, with you.
Well, we've already heard some of that tonight. Obviously, residential doesn't pay quite at the same tax rate that commercial does. So right now, as we fill in Sky Ranch and others, right, this is where we'll start to take some of that burden off the homeowners for taxes and hopefully be able to, I don't know if I want to use the word coffers, but add more money into the city tax base instead of relying solely on the homeowners. So when it comes to taxes, yes, it's important to add homes and expand that, whether it be multifamily, but it's crucial that we continue adding commercial and bringing in commercial to lower that tax burden on the residents of Caldwell.
Thank you.
My turn. Taxes, great. We all love taxes, right? So the levy rate is based off our growth. I mean, each levy rate, each taxing district has a certain way that they calculate the levy rate, but certainly as we grow, and especially since Highway 2026, since the Urban Renewal District sunset there, that certainly has helped our levy rate. So I would say that growth can help current owners reduce the levy rate, commercial and residential, which then reduces a reduction in your taxes. Now, what some people might see on their tax bill is that their home value went up. So if your home value went up and the levy rate went down, you still may see more taxes on your tax bill. But I think growth is essential to lowering the levy rate. It plays an important part in the equation to figure out the levy rate for each taxing district. I'm sorry, I'll be honest, I do not have them all memorized. There's different ways that they figure that out for each taxing district, but certainly property values in the city, commercial property values affects your levy rate. If your levy rate goes down, generally your taxes go down unless the value of your home goes up. So, thank you.
Very good. Yes, sure. And that's something that really, I think, affects each and every one of us is the property taxes, because we all pay those in regards to the properties that we have. So it's very important as a city, as we continue to grow and to do those things, that we are very cognizant of the property tax burden on the citizens of Caldwell. What can we do to help alleviate that and to make it easier on them? You know, by bringing in more commercial, more industrial, that definitely helps and lowers that burden. You know, I'm very proud to say that over the last 4 years, the property taxes in Caldwell have been decreased by 40%. So that's nearly half. And that was done through good planning. Now, you may not see that completely in your tax bill, because you have to remember that there's other taxes associated with your property tax, but the portion from the city, 40% reduction over the last 4 years. That's something I'm extremely proud of in serving as mayor for these last 4 years, because that puts more money back in the pocket of the individuals. So we need to continue to monitor our growth, to grow in a positive way so that we are continuing to decrease that, because that's great, we've done that, but now we need to maintain that. And then also looking at when we have good tax years, this last one was a great example. You know, the city got return of a significant amount of money because interest rates have gone up so much that we received literally several $1 million that we weren't accounting for. And so we had that as leftover at the end of the budget year. So I had proposed that we use some of that money, not all of it, because we need to set some of it aside for future building that we need to do here at the city, but propose that we do return some of that to those most needed in the community as a property tax rebate. That's allowed by the state legislature now, so we need to look at those. Like I said, I did propose that for our senior citizens, for those 65 and over, that would have received a rebate back for their property taxes to ensure that they still had, because many of them were on fixed incomes, so they'd have the ability to pay for groceries as they continue to get more expensive, for gas and those needs that they have. So we need to continue to monitor that and make sure we're using tax dollars in an efficient and effective manner here at the city.
Thank you. I want to thank our police officers for being here, our security for being here. This question deals with that as well. What is the greatest need of the Caldwell Police Department? And a subsection from a different question is property crime is exploding. What are the options? What are the fixes? Brad, I believe we begin with you.
Sure. Well, thank you. With our Caldwell Police Department, they are doing a fabulous job. So we just received an update that crashes are down. Citations are up. High crime or felonious crime is down as well. So I think that the Caldwell Police Department is doing a great job there. What we most need is people on the ground, right? However, with technology, this council has been the first in the Valley to add technology. Some of you have heard about it, maybe some of you haven't. But we've started the drone program. And we're not talking about a drone that you just fly, that most of us are accustomed to, that we can buy at Walmart, so to speak. These drones are quite phenomenal, where they're hooked into the CAD system, can be dispatched to calls. In my presence, I guess my point I'm trying to make is we certainly can use technology to supplement our officers on the ground. So when I was observing how the drone would work, we had a loose dog of all things appear, and the drone took off and went to the area of the loose dog. It was a great demonstration of not needing to use the resources that are out on the street. These officers are out working other serious things. Not that a loose dog can't be serious, they certainly can cause a problem, but to pull them away from a more serious crime and send them to a dog running down the street when the drone can be dispatched. So I certainly agree with the equation, 1 officer per 1.2 thousand people, or we can start using technology to improve how well we take care of the calls that come out. It also protects our police officer, right? You have something up in the air, they can observe that drone as they're responding to more dangerous calls to see what's going on outside that residence. So what do our police officers need? They need more pay, that's for sure. But with that more pay, we can also add technology that keeps them safe and keeps our community safe as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald?
Thank you. Yes, so providing the needs for our police are very, very important. So we need to make sure that they have positions needed, that we're continuing to add officers every year, growing in the way that we are, that we need to make sure we keep up with that status quo. How many officers do we need per 1,000 people? You know, when we're going 3, 4, 5,000 people a year, that means we need that many more officers every year. We got to be cautious to not put that on the back burner, because if you do, then sooner or later you're going to have to play catch up, and that's very difficult to do. So we need to stay on top of that, providing those officers every year, budgeting for those appropriately. You know, and also looking at those positions. You know, we've been able to create some new CSO positions, our community service officers. I had the chance actually to meet with one of them today, and they do an amazing job. And I really appreciate, you know, the support officers, we have a few in the back, that support them in those positions that they're doing. You know, they're able to take care of kind of that lower hanging fruit. You know, the cars that are parked illegally, the cars that have been, you know, parked that are not running, things of that nature, so that we're not taking an officer's time to be out there looking into those, but they can be out there on patrol doing the things that they need to be doing and alleviating that. So we need to continue to look at those positions, finding those positions, creating them. Then also the DFR, you know, the drones first responder as well. That's a very important thing that we have here in the city. I actually had the opportunity, I was at a conference, and I went to one of the classes, and that's what they talked about. And while I'm in the conference, I was texting the police chief about, hey, we need to look into this. And he wrote me back and said, guess what? We already are. So it was great when we got back. We sat down, we called this company and made some arrangements for them to be able to come and present what they do, and working again seamlessly with the police chief, with the police department, to ensure that we're providing those needs. And the great thing about these is it helps our police officers, but it also helps our firefighters as well. So it really protects all of our first responders, where those can go out and it can give you, if it's an emergency for police, they can show you what's exactly happening with that view. For fire, it can also go out to like a scene of an accident or a fire and give them a first look at, okay, how am I going to combat this fire when I get there, when they can already see it before they get there. So it provides services for not only police, but also for our fire department as well.
Thank you. Eric?
I'm going to concur with both of these gentlemen, but you know, really you have to look out what's out on the ground, right? What is the field telling us? If you drive around the city, you see there's a plethora of issues, right? We have a lot of traffic, crimes that are occurring, right? People running stop signs, stop lights. It feels like we're playing Pac-Man with all the road construction, which is causing more frustration and I think more aggressive driving. I think it's important for the leadership of the Caldwell Police Department to get out there, make sure they understand what's going on with their guys on the ground, guys and gals. I do love the community service officer program. That was a great thing that I had seen at Nampa quite some time ago, right? It takes a lot of those not in progress, non-priority calls that are not danger to the officer, and gives those to folks that can handle those and take that time and keep our officers out on the street. You know, look at the national standard for the 1,000 officers, or how many officers per 1,000 people. That's great and all, but we have to look at the workload ourselves for the city, right? Every municipality is different. Some jurisdictions could have, you know, a perfect number for the amount of officers they have for their population. I think with us being a gateway community in the Treasure Valley, the amount of things that are coming across the border in Oregon, you know, we've seen news stories about cartels and other issues. I think we need to look at stepping up what we have as far as personnel and manpower. I think we're a little heavy on the administrative side. We need to shift some of those numbers down to boots on the ground. I think that's going to make a big difference. If you really want to get property crime down, you're going to have to use your criminal analysts, right, and just add more people in those areas and use a data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety to attack that stuff. Look at where it's all coming from and just continue to shift personnel from the higher end down to the lower end and serve the community of Caldwell in the best manner possible.
Thank you. This is an online question. How can a voter be assured that you are not being influenced by national extreme groups that do not represent traditional Idaho values, such as the Idaho Freedom Foundation? And I believe, Jared, you are first here.
Good, thank you so much. I can assure the voters that I am not influenced by that. I think actions speak very loud in that regards, and kind of seeing how we have dealt with those issues in the past. But yeah, I think it's very important to be cautious of those, to not be influenced by those extreme groups that are out there. That we need to ensure that it's the citizens of Caldwell that we are listening to, and that we are listening for their needs and their wants, and that those are being taken care of. that we're not just basing our decision off of what a group may telling us that they want us to vote or how they want us to do these things. I remember I mentioned that I did serve in the state legislature before, and I was very proud that I never based a vote on what a group was telling me to do or say. I always based it on what I thought was best for the community that I served. And I actually got some messages one time from one of those groups that really tried to sway a lot of those legislators, and they informed me that I had a very negative score with them. And I was more proud of that than disappointed, because to me it showed that I was listening to my constituents. I wasn't listening to a special interest group. So we need to ensure that we are listening to the people that we serve at the end of the day.
Thank you. Eric?
I'm going to agree with what a majority of what the mayor said. I've talked about how, one, my vote can't be bought, right? I think it's important that we do listen to everyone here. Sure, I am a huge proponent of our constitutional rights, right? First Amendment, Second Amendment, and a variety of others. But at the end of the day, we're here to serve the citizens of Caldwell and really listen to our community, their wants and needs. The state legislature, of course, has a lot more pressure when it comes to things like gun rights and other issues, things going on in the schools, and just a whole variety of issues. But down here at the local level, it's important to listen to your constituents, their wants, their needs, and how can we best serve them and fix the things that they want fixed.
Thank you. Brad?
Yeah, I think adding to that, meaning certainly we can sit up here and tell you that we're not, and you can do some research through the Secretary of State if you're talking about a donation. If you're talking about just a friendship with a group, check it out for yourself. Come meet your counselors, come meet your mayor. We're all accessible and approachable. Our phone numbers are out there. Come and talk with us and see if what we're telling you is true. I mean, if we're going to get the community involved, and that's what we want, and we want to listen to our community, you certainly can reach out to us. It doesn't have to be at a council meeting. It can be at any time. See who that we associate with, in addition to all the things that you can research on social media or databases, right? I'm here also to tell you, what group was it? I don't associate with
IFF.
I don't associate with the IFF. I just don't, so I'll tell you that. But then come out and meet with us and be with your council and ensure that what they're telling you is true or not. So that's just in addition to everything else you've heard. So that's the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. The penultimate question we've saved for last because it's probably the most important. It deals with parking. So what is the solution for parking in and around the surrounding area of downtown? We believe we began with Eric.
Once upon a time, I've heard this multiple times from folks that are in this audience, we didn't have a parking problem, right? We wished for a parking problem. We're now at that point, but when I look at planning, right, some of the planning that's taking place, we give away, I think it was 105 parking spots for 75 years, right? The first 20 years is free. The Dirt Lot Hotel, we just cramped the fairgrounds to a completely, I think, unusable area. I think a lot of things are going to have to change down there. I take a look at when I walk around downtown, some of the aprons and other areas that come out into the area, into the streets. I think we have the opportunity, code pending, right? Or do we need to modify stuff? Can we maximize the parking downtown? Is there other areas that we can make some modifications, right? I know we just got the Wayfinder signs, I believe is what they're called. I mean, it's helpful to get people downtown, but we can't keep cramming things down here to the point where they're overflowing into other people's neighborhoods and residential areas, right? For some people, they either have very little of a driveway or they have multi-family housing to where, when we have a big event downtown, which is great, we're now blocking their parking because you have people parking 2 and 3 and 4 blocks away. And I just don't think that's fair. So we really need to take a hard look at downtown and see what we can do to maximize that parking. We want the businesses to be here, we want them to stay. But if there's no parking available, right, we're gonna continue cycling through the small mom and pop stores that are trying to survive down here. It's already expensive enough. So we need to make sure we're doing the right thing and not treating downtown like a sardine can and cramming more and more and more when we don't have the appropriate parking that's available.
Thank you. Brett?
Well, I support the parking committee that's in place. Again, it's made up of people just like you and I, of the citizens of this community, and certainly working with them. I've attended some of their meetings, And I think it's important to get community feedback on that. There are many hidden little areas to park that sometimes people know about that not all the time your elected officials know about. If I could dream just here a little bit, when Fire Station 1, certainly I don't want to put parking on our main street. I think main streets of cities should be for window shopping and all of us talking with each other and getting off our phones is what Main Street should be for. However, when Fire Station 1 relocates to the old City Hall, I certainly would be in support of tearing down the old Fire Station 1, at least starting that with surface parking, until we can decide if we do want a parking garage or whatever direction that would go. That would create a lot of surface parking really close to downtown, to Main Street. In addition to that, I think some people aren't aware, but we do have some carts. It was offered to me a couple times tonight already. Maybe I just look like I needed some help walking, I'm not sure, because he came by twice. And I was dressed okay, but he came by twice. And so just so you know, we do have, in the meantime, until those other parking areas can be developed, which will be coming, there are some carts out there that you can certainly grab a hold of. Those belong to you as taxpayers, and you certainly should jump on those. In regards to the hotel parking, I'll just touch on that really quickly. Out by the rodeo grounds, don't forget the rodeo sold out first time 3 nights in a row this year with the construction going on. So it's all relative to what's going on. We have 4 entities out there trying to all get along, trying to be prosperous for our community, donating, or not donating, but contributing several $1 million to our community. And so it's about getting along. Parking shifted from one end to the other, and there's plenty of parking on the fair entry side. So thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Very good, yes, thank you so much, and a great question. You know, it's nice to have that problem that's happening in the downtown with parking, because we didn't have that when I was growing up. You could find a spot anywhere, even 10 years ago. So it actually is a good issue to have. It's something we are working on and trying to fix in a very good manner. So I think my first thought goes back to growing up here. I remember we always see those great signs along the road, especially at churches. And I remember there's a church, I used to golf a lot at Purple Sage growing up, and so there's a church on the way there. It always having one of the signs they had up one day, it said, "Don't pray for rain and then complain about the mud." And that has stuck with me ever since I was 16 years old when I saw that. But again, so we have wanted this growth, we have wanted this change in Caldwell and to have a thriving downtown, and we have that now. And obviously with that comes the issue of parking. It's been mentioned that it was on the low side. It was said to build a parking garage is $20 million. That is a lot of money that the city does not have just laying around to spend on. That would have to be a bond that would go to the public, and it's tough to get a bond passed for a fire station. Our bond passed by 3 votes to build a fire station. Say, we want to save your lives, let us build this, 3 votes. So building a garage with a bond is going to be a near difficult, if not impossible task. So we have to look at other options that are out there. There's a P3, that's a public-private partnership, where the city can partner with these private entities out there to see, okay, how can we work together and build this parking garage? Well, obviously they're going to need to get something out of it, economic gain for them to do it, and then what can the city provide as well? So we need to work with that, creating those partnerships and getting those companies interested to come in with a P3 for the city to do that. And then also, it's easy to complain, but it takes a lot more work to find a solution. And I think that's so important today. It seems like it is, again, it's so easy to complain, to go to your favorite Facebook page or whatever that is, and to make those complaints, but what are we doing to find a solution? And so the parking was mentioned about the hotel, and so we found a solution. So we worked together with staff, we worked together with the rodeo, we worked together with the fair, and we found a way to make it work. And so we had parking areas to do that in. And so myself and our economic development director, every night at the rodeo, we were shuttling people back and forth in our golf carts to make sure that they didn't have to walk if they didn't want to, and providing those solutions for those individuals.
Fantastic, thank you. Before I ask this final question, would you please join me in thanking the city for providing this space, the chamber, the Idaho League of Women Voters, and our security personnel for putting this event on. The final question is really just a summary. It's just your closing argument for why you should be the candidate that the citizens of Caldwell vote for, and if I'm not mistaken, Brad, you begin with you.
So I would start with executive leadership. So again, I've served my entire life in public service. I'm 17 years old, entering the military and completing that duty assignment, and became a deputy sheriff, Then I went on to the state police. I served as a state trooper for the citizens of Idaho for 27 years. So I started in St. Mary's. Well, first I went to the ISP Academy, which I was the class president there. And then I got stationed in the great place of St. Mary's, Idaho. No one's from St. Mary's? Okay. I didn't stay there long after the flat tires. And I moved to Moscow, where I spent 12 years of my career in Moscow. While in Moscow, I was promoted to sergeant, which is clearly the leadership abilities to lead a team of troopers in the patrol division. From there, I was promoted from sergeant to lieutenant down here in Meridian, coming to the Treasure Valley. So I went from the smallest district in the state to running the largest district in the state. Are we on a time limit for this one? Okay, I better hurry up. Running the largest district in the state, then I moved on to captain within the state police and ran alcohol beverage control. That's where I gained my experience with multi-million-dollar budgets. Certainly learned that from Ray Land that works here. She used to work with me at the state police and now works here at the city. And then on to major. So I finished my career as a major, where I ran Bureau of Criminal Identification, as well as Districts 1 and 2, the Strategic National Stockpile, and Alcohol Beverage Control. And so once I was a major, most of you have heard about this case, the Idaho 4 up in Moscow, Idaho. Shortly after I was promoted to major, that incident occurred. I spent a lot of time flying back and forth to Moscow, and finished my career with the state police now 2 years ago after the apprehension of that individual. But I would say mostly it's the executive leadership that's taught me, and I think it's a lot to get in 2 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Joe.
Thank you, appreciate that question very much. So it is the duties and responsibilities of a mayor are never ending. There are so many different aspects of what you do as the mayor of the city of Caldwell. And again, it's been an amazing privilege these last 4 years to serve in this capacity. And so what allows me to continue this is also the people of Caldwell and in their decision. And so I would ask for their vote, obviously, in that regard, so that we can continue the great things. And I would say, you know, look at where we're at today. We are doing amazing things in the city of Caldwell. Have there been some missteps that we learned along the way? Most definitely we have. And I'm very proud to say that I have learned and I have tried to improve and do better. And that's what it's all about in life, is trying to do better as you move forward. And so the biggest achievements that we've been able to achieve these last 4 years, I would say, one of those is attracting the industrial, commercial, the retail that we have here in Caldwell. You know, we talked about the Home Depot that's going to open next week. They are so excited. I remember the first time that we met them and got to talk to them, they're like, Caldwell? Caldwell where? And the next time we saw them, they told us that back at their corporate headquarters, they were talking about Caldwell every single day. And that's because of the partnerships and the relationships that we had created with them. And that is a key part of being mayor of the city of Caldwell. And that's one of the things that I excel at, is being able to create these lasting partnerships, these lasting relationships where people really truly feel and know that I care. 100%, I'm devoted to the city and what we do and what we're achieving. The Seasons of Caldwell is another wonderful initiative, if you haven't heard of, that we started, that is all about combating the negativity, especially on social media, and putting positive things out there in our world and in our community. You know, the Season of Giving that's going to be coming up here in a couple of months, where we have the opportunity to give back to our community. Take a picture of yourself doing something. I'll post it to social media with the hashtag Caldwell Season of Giving. And that's what it's all about, is improving the community we live in and what we're doing, creating those partnerships. If you weren't able to attend the State of Our City, please go and watch it. It's on YouTube. It was an amazing event and just highlighted the reasons why I believe I should continue to be mayor for the next 4 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Eric.
You know, following up on the missteps and other things that have occurred, I think it's important to look at, right, who you're going to elect as your mayor, right? Are they going to use the government against you? Are they going to take that negativity that's on social media? You know, it's nice to turn it around and get this message out, but at the same time, what have you done with it to date? Right, so whether I serve one term or many, I will work tirelessly to build a team that stands up for our citizens, right, as I've tried to do day in, day out for years on end. There's a need to fix as many problems in the city as humanly possible. Once again, it goes back to that team, and bring about the changes Caldwell needs. I'm here because I believe in this city, right? I didn't just move here, I've been here my entire life minus military service, and I have faith in its people, the people that I talk out on the streets with, in their driveways, on social media, at 1 or 2 in the morning when people reach out, because that happens to be their work hours. I would really say that Caldwell deserves a place where my child your children, our grandchildren, and future generations not only want to live, but want to stay, right? That's why I'm running, that's why I'll fight for this community. Every single day I'm given the honor to serve as your mayor and to utilize the leadership that I've learned over time, right? To not only listen to you, but to hear you.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking our mayoral candidates.